But as your star was rising, there was also the issue of this transgender bill that went before you. And it was to ban men from playing women's sports, if I could distill it down, but ultimately to keep people in the sport that's associated with their biological sex. It was known as HB 1217. You issued what was known at the time as a style and form veto and registered your objections to it. You later followed with an executive order banning men from women's sports. And then this February, I believe you signed into law a piece of legislation that you proposed that would ban men from women's sports. Can you give us, I know, again, due to time constraints, you probably could go on forever about this, but give us a summary of why it is that you vetoed that legislation in the first place and what made it safe to make it a law this year.
Well, the bill that was placed on my desk back a couple of years ago that the legislature generated was very flawed. It would have immediately ended up in court and been upheld and set precedent that wouldn't have allowed me to protect girls' sports. I made some changes to the bill, sent it back to the legislature, and they rejected those changes, so the bill died. That very same day, I issued executive orders saying that only girls could play in girls' sports in our state and protected them until we could pass a good bill that would be in statute, that would be the strongest bill in the nation, that would make sure that if it was challenged legally, that it would win in court and that we would be able to continue to make sure that there was fairness. And this issue for me, I've always talked about as being a fairness issue. I want our women to have an opportunity to compete on a level playing field, to be successful, potentially go on, earn scholarships, play professionally if they'd like to, but biological men should not be playing in girls' sports.
What role, you talk about the precedent, again, I guess you would have been one of the early states to have banned men from women's sports. When you did sign the legislation in February, when you introduced it in December, your spokesman told Fox at the time that one of the reasons this was possible seems to be that other states, his quote was, "Other states have linked arms." As Governor Noem urged at the time, she's excited to protect girls' sports at both the K through 12 and collegiate level, just as she's done with her executive orders. And those states included places like Florida, Alabama, West Virginia. Were you waiting for them to go first to see what happened to them before deciding to pass this, to introduce and then pass this into law?
No, I was making sure that we were doing this in a smart way that we would win. For me, it's important to win, not just to have the argument and do what's politically right and then lose the battle at the end of the day. And if that bill had been passed, the original flawed bill, and it would have ended up in court and been overturned or even just held up in court for months or even years, men would have been able to play in girls' sports in our state, and it would have become normalized and been something that they would have been able to do. And I couldn't have done anything as governor to protect girls' sports. I wanted to make sure that I had the ability to keep those programs intact the way that they were and keep them fair until we had a strong bill in place. So that's why I did executive orders to keep them there and to keep our girls' sports protected so that we could get a good bill on the books that could be defendable.
So do you think, sorry, Jason, one last item on this.
Sure.
Do you think that the criticism of you from conservatives was unfair, that you were poorly treated in this saga?
Absolutely. Yeah, I tell everybody it was pretty surprising to me because nobody told the truth, even my friends. We had, I think that it's interesting, the political environment that we're in that I knew that Democrats and liberals would attack me because they obviously, many of them would like to see biological males playing in girls' sports. But I was the first time really in a discussion on a policy like this that I had been attacked by my friends. And nobody covered the fact that that very same day that the bill failed, that I did executive orders. Nobody talked about the fact that years before, when I was in Congress, that I fought to protect girls' sports and the sport of rodeo in our state and won. So I had a long history on this issue of wanting fairness. And it was surprising to me that conservatives, who maybe had a different agenda for trying to come after me, were willing to distort the truth on what was really going on here in our state.
Are you suggesting an agenda related to presidential politics, like preferred candidates in 2024 or something?
I think there's the potential for that. Absolutely. I think that, and that's what politics is. You have to do what's right. You recognize that you're going to take heat, and that's why it's important to have strong leaders. There may be people on the left because of different belief systems that are opposing you, but you may have people that believe, much like you do, that are coming after you because they see you as competition. I don't know really what was going through everybody's minds at that time, but I do know for a fact that what we did here in South Dakota was the right thing to do.
So Governor Noem, I'm wondering how big an issue this is in South Dakota. Do you have an estimate for how many trans athletes you have in South Dakota?
I don't know how many trans athletes that we have, and we certainly haven't gone out and specifically tried to figure that out. I would say that we do have some that are competing, that we do have them at the K-12 level and at the collegiate level. And so it is an issue, and it's important to make sure that we protect the fairness in our sporting events at the K-12 and public school level, as well as at the collegiate level.
Okay, so I'm also not familiar how this would work. So if you, and I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on trans issues, but I was wondering, like, if you had a trans athlete, let's say is it Leah Thomas, were to come and compete against the University of South Dakota, would she not be permitted to compete under the rules that you guys have created?
That is correct.